I'm just walking around the park this morning and I'm thinking, how exciting is it getting? It's only 8 days until the Rugby World Cup gets underway in France. And I don't know about you, but there's a huge amount of anticipation around for this year's Rugby World Cup. It's going to be super exciting. So many teams in with opportunities, but there's also many plots to this story. There's going to be many plots to this story. And none of us really know what's going to happen, and that's what makes it so exciting. So I thought in this video I would cover 5 crucial games in this first round of the Rugby World Cup. I think they're going to be 5 crucial games, and I'll tell you why in this video. So let's take a look at those games that are all happening next weekend. G'day and welcome to Inside Rugby. My name is Mark, and if you haven't been here before, I'm a Kiwi rugby fan who's living in beautiful Cancun in Mexico. And if you want to check out a little bit of Mexico, or Cancun in particular, then check out tomorrow's video that I'm going to be posting, because I'm going to be out on location and showing you some of the spectacular sights from here in Cancun. Okay, in this video I thought, well, we're just 8 days away from the start of this year's Rugby World Cup, and I've chosen 5 games that are happening in round number 1 that I think are going to be really crucial to the outcome of this year's Rugby World Cup. And the reason I think they're going to be crucial is because I think these teams that are playing in these games are going to want to hit the ground running. There's a lot at stake, of course, in this year's competition. And those teams that get off to a good start are going to be on the front foot. And I think psychologically, and if they get through these games without injuries that are critical to their team's performance, I think that's going to set them up very well for this year's competition. And also, don't forget, being runner-up in a pool is going to make a big difference as well. So I've selected these games on a couple of different parameters, I guess, for us to have a look at in this particular video. And I'd like you to comment on what you think about these particular games. Do you think they are the most crucial ones in round number 1 of the pool stage of this year's Rugby World Cup? Or are there some other games out there that you think are going to be just as important as these ones? Now, the Rugby World Cup starts off, of course, on Friday, September the 8th. And we've got that massive clash at the Stade de France in Paris with the All Blacks playing the French national team. And what an occasion this is going to be for not only World Rugby, but for also France Rugby as they kick off this year's Rugby World Cup. The French public have been getting extremely excited about this competition for the last couple of years, and in a week's time they get to show their excitement around this whole competition. So it's going to be a really big occasion for sure at the Stade de France next Friday between the All Blacks and France. Now, I think this is one of the crucial games of round number 1, because the All Blacks are coming off that spanking from the Springboks. And I think there's a lot of concern in this All Black team at the moment, even though they're not showing it. And if you watch my video tomorrow, I think it's going to cause some controversy here on YouTube, because I'm going to tell it how I see it. And some people I know already are not going to like it, or they're not going to agree with me. And that's perfectly okay. But check out that video that's coming tomorrow, Friday. So yeah, the All Blacks versus France, I think this is going to be a massive game. But I tell you what, I think the French are going to get up and give it to the All Blacks next weekend. And I'll tell you why I think that's going to happen. I think that game against the Springboks announced a few concerns for the All Blacks in this particular campaign. The All Blacks are a very good team when they get front-running position in a game. And we saw that at Mount Smart Stadium against the Springboks, where they had an incredible 20 minutes and they were able to put a significant amount of points on the board. And I think what we've seen as a result of other games that the All Blacks have been playing in, and I talk about the games, the tighter games against Argentina, and how Australia held them for a short period of time as well. When the All Blacks start to get a little bit of pressure put on them, they're not used to it and they have trouble dealing with it. So they haven't had a lot of practice of this, and I think going into this Rugby World Cup, that's going to be their Achilles heel. I think they're going to find moments where they're under extreme pressure, they're going to have trouble repelling that. and I expect that to happen to France. I think this French team is going to come out absolutely on fire next Friday against the All Blacks. They're going to be at home in front of that patriotic crowd at the Stade de France. There's going to be so much emotion, power and energy, and I suspect that that alone is going to add 10 or 15% on top of this French team's motivation for this particular game. On top of that, they're playing the All Blacks, and as we know, every team that plays against the All Blacks, they seem to grow a couple of extra arms and legs, and I think that's going to happen also to this French team next week. The All Blacks, I think, are still going to have some lingering memories of that game against the Springboks and how things went wrong. And the most critical point for me was they started having disciplinary issues, and Ian Foster's talked about this in press conferences since that game, where the All Blacks got rattled and they started to make misjudgment calls around the breakdown area, ending up in Scott Barrett's cards. And I think we could see that again in this game against France. I think if France get a roll on the All Blacks in this game, early in this game, I think we're going to see some of the same issues rearing their head for the All Blacks. So I think this is going to be a really important encounter. Of course, a team can lose their first game and still win the Rugby World Cup. But I think any of the teams playing their first round game, getting a win is going to be very good for their motivation and their momentum going into this Rugby World Cup. And it just releases the pressure a little bit. If you have a loss in that first game, it's going to increase the pressure a notch. And going into that second game, there's going to be that cloud hanging over teams' heads. So it doesn't matter how easy your group is, I think that you need to be focused on trying to win all your games. And that French All Black encounter is going to be extremely important to both teams' psychology as they kick off this Rugby World Cup. Now, once the two teams are named for that first game, I'll be doing a full preview video of what I think is going to happen in a lot more detail. This video is just talking about what I think are going to be the crucial games in that first round. So I'm expecting France to give the All Blacks a hard time, and I think that's going to be one of the crucial games of this year's Rugby World Cup. So that's the only game being played on Friday next week, and then we go into Saturday, and what a Saturday it's going to be. Now, I've chosen two games on Saturday that I think are going to be crucial. One is in Pool C and the other is in Pool D. Starting off with the Pool C game, we have Australia playing Georgia in their first game. And I'm not underestimating this Georgia team in this year's Rugby World Cup. I think they did a really good job against Scotland in the first half. And if they can come in with their full strength team and they can get some momentum going against Australia in that first half, I think it's going to be a really interesting game indeed. And I think in their number 10, Makavar, they've got a real superstar. I really like the way he played against Scotland. He was very impressive with every area of his game, and I think he's going to cause the Australians some problems in that first game. So yeah, I put this down as a crucial game for Pool C. I think it's going to be a very tight group, and I think Australia can't afford to get away to a bad start. And after that thrashing by France last weekend, their motivation's going to be pretty low. So if Georgia can start off with a good 20 or 30 minutes, it's going to rattle the Australians, and they're going to start to get a little bit nervous about the outcome of this game. Expect a few headphones to be smashed in the coach's box by Eddie Jones during this one. I think he's going to get pretty upset at different times if things don't go Australia's way. So let me know what you think of this game, Australia-Georgia. On paper, it may look an easy win for Australia perhaps, but I think Georgia are going to come to this World Cup and they're going to do something fairly special. So let me know whether you agree or whether you think Australia's going to get home comfortably in this Pool C tie next Saturday. Now, the next game I think that's going to be crucial is also being played on Saturday, September the 9th. It's a Pool D game, and it's that super clash between England and Argentina. Yes, I think this one's going to be one of the crucial games for both of these teams in this year's Rugby World Cup. Being the opening game, both teams are going to want to get away off to a win in the Rugby World Cup. So I think they're both coming from different positions. Of course, Argentina had that massive win over Spain in their last warm-up game. I don't think that was too crucial in respect to what's going to happen in this World Cup, but it would have given them a lot of confidence. They scored a lot of tries, they got their combinations working, and they would have worked out a lot of their set plays in that game as well. So I think that game on one hand would have given them a lot of good opportunities. Unfortunately, they've been hit by a couple of big injuries Argentina, and we're going to see how they cover those roles as we head into this first game. Don't forget, I'm going to be doing previews of all these games before next weekend once the teams are announced. So from an England point of view, well, we all know the dramas that they've been through. Steve Borthwick's under constant pressure now with the performance of this England team. So I think they're going to go in very nervous. They got soundly beaten, I thought, by Fiji. Fiji were much the better team on that day at Twickenham last weekend. And I think England are going to be under a lot of pressure because this is going to be one of the key games for them in this year's Rugby World Cup. Again, both teams are going to want to start off with a win in this game, so expect it to be close and tight. And once that forward competition is worked out between these two teams, then I think we're going to see some flair from the backline. And Argentina definitely have the potential in their backline to score a few tries. And it's one thing we've been waiting on from England, isn't it, for quite a while now, is for their backline to be ignited. And it's going to be interesting to see whether Marcus Smith is going to be the guy that makes that happen for England against Argentina. So two really interesting clashes there. Next Saturday, September the 9th, we have Australia against Georgia, and we have England against Argentina. And then the next crucial game, the fourth one in my list today, is going to be that Pool B game between South Africa and Scotland that's being played in Marseille next Sunday. And I think this is going to be a really important game in Group B. Both of these teams are going to field their A team, I'm sure, to come out and play against each other, and I think this one's going to be a very bruising encounter. So it's going to be key for both teams to get through without too many injuries, and in particular injuries that could rule somebody out of the Rugby World Cup. I think the Springboks have got bigger depth than Scotland, of course, going into this game, but I think the Scottish team is going to be on fire right from the start, and I think Gregor Townsend's strategy is to try and make an upset in this Rugby World Cup as early as he can. Super impressed with the way the Springboks played against the All Blacks, of course, in their last outing, and I expect them to carry on that form now into their first game against Scotland. So expect, from my point of view, we're going to have a Springbok win, but we'll have to wait and see. I'll do a full preview of that game as well next week once the teams are announced. But the big thing about this Pool B and this particular game between Scotland and the Springboks is we've got Ireland in this group as well. And of course, three doesn't go into two. So one of these teams are going to be on the plane on the way home very early in this Rugby World Cup. And it's going to be super, super tight. So that's why I think this game, the first game between these two teams, is going to be critical. And then the last game that I think is going to be crucial out of the 5 games that I have chosen is the Pool C game that's happening on Sunday, September the 10th in Bordeaux. And that's between Wales and Fiji. Yes, this is going to be an incredibly exciting encounter as well. And I've chosen this game because of the other one between Australia and Georgia. And I think having this Wales and Fiji game as round number 1 is going to put a lot of intrigue immediately into that Pool C. And we may even start to see the way that that pool's going to develop after this first round. So Fiji, of course, coming off that enormous historic win against England, their first time in the history of their rugby playing nation. They got to beat England at Twickenham. So they're going to be bringing in a huge amount of belief into that game against Wales. Whereas Warren Gatland's team really hasn't hit its straps yet. They got that scrappy win over England, of course, at the Principality Stadium. But since then, they've struggled really to get on top, and they had that thrashing by the Springboks at Principality as well. So Gatland, as we know, has been playing around with this team and his combinations. It's going to be interesting to see who he puts out in this first game against Fiji. And don't forget, I'll be doing a full preview of that game once the teams are announced next week. So I think this is going to be a really crucial game for both teams in the Rugby World Cup. I see if Fiji get up and win this game, they're going to be on cloud 9. They're going to be very, very difficult to beat in this competition if they get over top of Wales and they keep that momentum going after they played England, of course. And they've got a couple of key players coming back in for this game against Wales. So that's going to give them a little bit more firepower, I believe, against Wales. I see Fiji being a little bit too strong, and if they can maintain their presence in this game for 80 minutes, I think they'll get over the top of Wales, but I'll leave my predictions until next week when we've seen the teams come out and we're a little bit closer to the kickoff time. There's 5 crucial games I think are going to happen in round number 1 of this year's Rugby World Cup, kicking off with All Blacks and France on Friday, September the 8th, and then those 2 interesting games on Saturday between England and Argentina and Australia and Georgia. And then on Sunday we've got the Springboks against Scotland and we've got Wales against Fiji. So it's going to be an enormous first weekend of rugby in this year's Rugby World Cup. I'm going to be flat out making videos for you, so I would really appreciate if you hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, give me a lot of love and support as I continue to try and grow this channel from here in Mexico. Really exciting games happening next weekend. Let me know what you think of these particular games, how crucial they're going to be in each of the pools. And if you want, also give me your predictions. Don't forget, I'm going to be back next week after the teams are announced with full preview videos on what I think is going to happen in these particular games. Okay, that's it for this video. Time for me to go back and enjoy some beautiful sunshine now here in Cancun, and I'll be back tomorrow with what I think is going to be a very controversial video talking about one team in particular in this year's Rugby World Cup who's one of the favourites to win it and why I think they're not going to. So make sure you tune back tomorrow for that one. Until then, have a beautiful day everyone, stay safe, stay well, and remember to always enjoy your rugby. Until next time, bye for now.